What's up, you bunch of foosballs? We're here today with the Starving Podcast, and I'm going to introduce a few of our sponsors. The first is GenoPalate. They're a company that analyzes your DNA and tells you about what food sensitivities you might have and how you process protein, carbs, and fat. We truly feel that this is the future of customized nutrition, not an app and not anything else. Learn more about your body and go to genopalette.com or use the link for $20 off using code CBG. Our other sponsor today is X Endurance. This is one of the only supplement companies out there that third-party tests their products. So if you're a high-performance athlete, you're going to want to make sure there isn't anything illegal inside your supplements. Also, if you're targeting weight loss, these products are extremely quality, and whatever it says is on the bottle is actually in there because they get someone outside of their facility to test their products. Our third sponsor is Performasleep. So whether you want to make your wife happy or your husband happy and get them a nice new bed that feels like you're sleeping on a cloud, you can get the California King. And if you're a lonely bastard, you can get the regular old single. Totally up to you. Regardless, all the mattresses have copper infused inside of them, which is antimicrobial. So Performasleep is optimized with some of the best athletes in the world how to target optimal sleep. And as you know, as we've talked on the podcast several times before, that sleep is pretty important for recovery and weight loss. So use the code in our show notes, and you can get $75 off your first bed with Performasleep. Our last sponsor is Consistency Breeds Growth. Let's just say I have connections. These goons, they basically will optimize your nutritional profile specifically for you and tell you exactly what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat for every meal. They believe that every single person on the planet is different, which is why so many different diets exist. So should you be following a vegan diet? Should you be following a keto diet? Should you be on a high carbohydrate diet? Let them evaluate this and let them tell you what you need to be doing to reach your goals. So we have a special guest today, one of my best friends, Macy Chiasson. So please stay tuned and get ready for an exciting one.
It's science.
All right, what's up, everybody? How we doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, so today we're going to have a special guest on. Her name is Macy Chiasson. She's born and raised near New Orleans, which is where I'm originally from. She is the winner of the Ultimate Fighter 28, and she is currently a professional UFC fighter in the Bantamweight division. And for those of you that love UFC because you like seeing people get beat up, but you don't actually know anything else about the weight divisions or anything else, Bantamweight is 125 pounds to 136 pounds. She has a professional record of 7-1, and she's 4-1 in the UFC. I've had the pleasure of working with Macy for her last fight, which she won. And she is one of the most disciplined athletes that I've ever worked with on the planet. And she's going to tell us a lot today about her journey, in mixed martial arts and fighting, and tell us really what it takes. And we'll go through a lot of other stuff about how we helped you drop 25 pounds in a short period of time, which is what people want to do, but it's not the most healthy way, but it's what needs to be done, of course, to fight at the correct weight division in the UFC if you want to be bigger in the cage. So, Macy, what's going on?
Well, first off, I want to say thank you for having me on the podcast. And second off, thank you for calling me your best friend. That really took me for a loop.
Nice. I say that every time I talk to you. I hope it offends your actual best friend. Like, I hope they hear this and they're like, what the
My friends are pretty laid back. All my friends are in New Orleans, so
Yeah.
it's pretty straightforward here in Dallas since I've moved here to kind of further my career in MMA. It's more like business when I'm here in Dallas. There's no outside like forces like directing me like, hey, let's go out, let's go eat, let's go do this. It's real hard to be professional in New Orleans, a professional athlete, say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, if I remember right, Mardi Gras was right after your last fight,
Yeah.
and you went down to Mardi Gras, and immediately it was like, this is an absolute tragedy. I need to leave here
Yeah.
immediately.
It was awful. It was awful. I left on Mardi Gras Day. I drove back to Dallas Tuesday, Fat Tuesday, just because like my body just was not used to any of that food or being out late and partying, and it just was awful. I just did not have a good experience, and I keep doing it after each fight, and I'm like, I need to go to the beach or something. Like I need to go to like a remote island after I fight.
Yeah, no, Mardi Gras is definitely not the place to be for recovery. It'll put you in a
Mm,
deeper hole. We'll leave it to
yeah.
Matt, your brother, to party for Mardi Gras.
Yeah, he can.
He's
You know what? He knows how to do it, so
he does.
he can
I
party for
started
all
working with
three of
him.
us.
Yeah, I started working with him a couple of weeks ago, and on his nutrition, he's crushing it. He's feeling really good.
Yeah.
He said he's eating more food than he ever has, so
Yeah, he
that's
texted me
good.
the other day and he was like, I've already gained a pound and a half. And I was like, dude, you probably weren't eating like enough. Or every time I see his posts on Instagram, I see like a po' boy. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. Yeah, he sent me some pictures of him, some nudies.
Ooh.
No, I'm just kidding. But
I know you're into that. That's why you're in the business. You want
that's
to see that
exactly
Monday
exactly.
photo.
I'm like, give me your pictures, and then I just never text people back.
Or you're like stalking people on their Whoop app, like talking about their libido and shit. I
You know,
stopped answering all the questions on Whoop. I was like, I am not gonna hear any shit from Justin today.
yeah, funny
Sexual
story.
activity, leaving it blank.
Yeah, I actually have access to Macy's Whoop. So this is a sensor technology that tells athletes about their sleep and all this other stuff. And I have her password, so I'm like looking through her stuff all the time. But some of this stuff is useful. Other stuff, it's kind of like,
Yeah,
all right, I don't need to know that right now, but
right.
eh,
I
it's all
mean, what do
good.
you think of the app itself, Justin?
I think the app is pretty good. I think that it's very
Yeah,
user friendly since they're a pretty new company.
right,
And this sensor technology is sort of the next wave. I think they have a very unique way of marketing HRV, which is
right,
different from just your resting heart rate. So your resting heart rate is how many beats per minute. Um, you know that how many beats occur in 1 minute from your heart, and heart rate variability, which is HRV, which is what the app uses to essentially collect data and put together a specific algorithm, is basically what's the distance between each heartbeat for all your heartbeats. And uh, a lot of scientific data out there suggests that the more variability you have, so like whether there's zero point 0.2 seconds between one heartbeat and zero point 0.4 between the next, and then 0.44 between the next, the more variability in between heartbeats, the better your recovery. Um, which is why HRV in the app, when it's higher, it's better. And yeah, I mean, it takes into a lot of different factors, recovery, based on your sleep and based on your activity level, and then it uses that HRV to sort of mesh everything together. And it has a good interface. I mean, there aren't many other sensor technologies out there. I think Apple's going on the health side. Um,
yeah.
so
I
for
never found
performance
the Apple
athletes,
Watch to be super accurate though. When I had it, I have a Garmin now though, but the Garmin's like pretty spot on with the Whoop.
really?
Yeah. I ended up getting a Garmin like right after my fight just because I run a lot, and it's got HRV. It measures like your stress level and all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty similar to the Whoop, and I'm like basically blinged out all the time with just all these like
There you go.
weird like apparatus shit on my wrist. I'm like, this is a lot.
I
I'm
see a lot of
overdoing it.
the runners at my gym use the Garmin. They all swear by them, so they're
Oh my god, it's
yes,
amazing. It's
yes.
insane.
Especially now during the quarantine, it's like I see them in nothing but the running shorts, a vest, and the Garmin. They look like fucking Terminators. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
Jordan, you're still
Um,
rocking those silicone bands, bro?
Oh, God.
Bitch ass. Rocket
Puka
got
shells.
6 silicone bands,
He got some
Lance
puka
Armstrong.
shells around his neck.
I
Those are
just
coming
like
back.
I put my fingers up to my neck and try and like do math when my heart is beating on my chest. I'm like, oh, it's beating, cool, good enough for me today. And
I'm
that's
still living.
that's about as crazy as I get. Yeah, yeah,
It's
still
pretty cool
living.
to see like the whoop, like to go back and see like my assessment like during a fight camp versus out of a fight camp, and just because you can't, there's not as much leniency when you're in a fight camp, so you have to make sure you're going to bed at this time, to make sure you're getting this amount of sleep, and you're not drinking or doing any of this. So like it's crazy to see like even having like one drink, like I might have like maybe like whiskey neat, like just one drink, and the next day I'll wake up and it's like your HRV is low.
Whoa.
Your resting heart rate has shot up like 10.
Right.
It's crazy.
How long do the
So
fight
that's
camps?
pretty cool.
Oh well. How long do the fight camps usually last? Like, you'll abstain from all drinking at that point as well? Like you said that.
I mean like it just depends on how far out I am, and then it just does not help with anything drinking. I mean, it messes up your recovery overnight, and you just feel like shit the next day. Even one drink, because I'm not used to drinking that much. Just because being in fight camps back to back, I mean, you really can't afford to do that to your body.
Yeah.
And then the dehydration, and I can really feel a difference like in fight camp, like having one drink, waking up the next day. Maybe I'm like 8 weeks out, 10 weeks out, and I'm like, whoa, like see, this is why I can't do this.
That's pretty wild.
But it just depends on the fight. It depends on when I get the fight. I've had a 4 week fight camp, like a 3.5 week
That's
fight
crazy.
camp, and then I've had something that was like 12 weeks.
Huh.
So
Yeah. Obviously, as a coach that's helping a fighter, lose, body fat and get to an appropriate position where they're able to acutely lose an amount of weight safely to make weight. And in this case, this is 136, 135 championship weight for Macy. We want as much time as possible. Ideally, 10 to 12 weeks is the target, but in the UFC, that's not always the case, right? What happens? They call you and they're just like, "Hey, you're fighting in this amount of time." Like, can you explain like the
well,
process?
yeah, I mean, so my coach is pretty well known in the UFC. He's on really good terms with Dana and Mick Maynard. And my coach also acts as like a manager slash matchmaker. So we usually know who we're gonna fight ahead of time. We get to kind of like sit down and really talk about it. But there are times when the matchmaker will call my coach and say, "Hey, we need a replacement." And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you always have to be ready. But it's a lot harder for women. And I think maybe you could like fill this in, Justin,
Yeah.
but it's just 3 weeks out for someone, especially women. I mean, that's hard to make 3 weeks out, you know and my coach is always telling me like, hey, like I'd really like you to walk around at like 150. I just something, just maybe
Yeah.
even like in the 40s. And I'm like, coach, it's just really hard because you need that recovery time after a fight.
Yeah.
I really messed up my metabolism when I was on the Ultimate Fighter, because I fought last each time on the show, and basically I had to make 145, and then I had 1 week off, and then I had to make 145 again.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
had to make it twice in like a week and a half. I
Yeah,
was
no,
on
it's
like this
insane.
insane caloric deficit in the house. I didn't have anyone. You don't have a nutritionist in there. You can't talk to anyone. So it's like you're really like, I mean, it's blind. Like you really can't, you really don't know. Like I basically starved myself in there. I just didn't know.
Yeah. There's really no other way to do it when you have like a week between fights and you have to make weight, and like just drinking water is going to bring you up 10 pounds, you know? Um, I think that it's kind of it's a give and take when it comes to how quickly you want to lose weight and how much you want to be at a caloric deficit. Like caloric deficits for women, specifically, can be extremely dangerous, for overall health, especially reproductive health. So it's you don't want to be at a caloric deficit for extended periods of time and dig yourself really deep into holes, um, you know, more than you have to, because it does have a long-term sort of effect on some things. And one of those things specifically is reproductive health. So that's why it's better to be at extremely small caloric deficits over a longer period of time, and then legitimately. And I've talked with your fight week coach, Eric Piana. Is that how you say his last name?
Pena.
Pena. Okay.
Pena.
Pena. Yeah.
It's got the yeah. It's got the inya.
The tilde.
Little squiggly thing.
The tilde. Tilde, sorry.
He'll probably give me crap for saying his name wrong. But
totally
anyway.
He's gonna text me and be like, bro, you can't mess up my name like that, bro.
He's so cool though. I don't think he would do anything like that. He really
is the coolest guy. Like, such a nice guy, and he genuinely, like, he cares about his fighters. I mean, he really does.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
that dude
for those...
would literally, like, fall off the end of the earth, like, during fight week for his fighters.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, his devotion, I really got a good sense of that working with him for your last fight. So basically, the way that it works for our audience is I worked and work with fighters, specifically in this case Macy, for her fight camp, and then she works with Eric for fight week. So we're trying to get her at a good targeted body weight so that fight week, when Eric works with her, things are a little bit easier. And this is where you really want to, during fight week, avoid losing massive amounts of weight and being at an extremely large caloric deficit for extended period of time. And I think, you can speak a little bit to it, but you said this was maybe one of your easier weight cuts this last time that you fought.
I mean, weight cuts in general are stressful, especially like with me, because I've never, especially because like you and I were working together for the first time, so like there's always like, because you don't know the end result yet, especially working with someone new. So like I always like had that nervous factor, and I've always had really hard weight cuts. I mean, like insane hard weight cuts, even at 45 when I was in the house. I mean, just really bad. And so that kind of puts like this PTSD type thing on you, where you're like, well, I don't know, like, even though it's going well, like, I don't know, like, how fight week's gonna go. Like, I'm gonna end up like staying in the bathtub like for 24 hours, like you're stressed out no matter what. And honestly, like this weight cut, like I was the most well fed out of any other weight cut. I was eating more carbs than I had ever eaten before, even during fight week. Eric's like, I'm gonna feed you some potatoes, and I was like, what? Like, I don't know about that, Eric. I don't know if we should do that. And he's like, no. He's like, your weight's so good. He's like, I'm gonna feed you some potatoes tonight. And I was like, okay. And it's just like trusting the process and trusting my nutritionist, and I mean, I've worked with nutritionists that kind of knew what they were doing, but not to the extent of like Justin, so eating carbs the week of. And then when I actually did like my weight cut, it was the easiest weight. I probably spent 45 minutes that morning and I was on weight. I'd never made actually 135 until now. And any other weight cut that I've had at 135 was like I made like the marker at 136, and it was like a struggle. It was a really bad struggle.
Yeah. What weight, just for our audience, what weight are you typically cutting from like before you start fight camp?
I don't know where was I at last time, Justin?
I think you were close to 160, but now I think you sit lower because we've helped the metabolism. We lost long-term body fat, I think. So I think you're in a position where you sit a little bit lower, which is, it's a good thing.
Usually I'm like 160. Like, I guess like if I was really like kind of, because like when I like in June or July, I've had a lot of traumatic shit happen to me too, which is always like put your stress level up, and that's that's awful for a female fighter. But because like a crane fell through my apartment in June, and then I ended up fighting in September, and and So I mean, I'm just eating way more now, and I'm on such a good meal plan now. I'm so well fed, and I'm sitting way lower. Like I'm at like 156 and a half right now.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think we actually, especially when we were regulating the metabolism, and you were eating a lot more food than you were used to, you you actually put on a little bit of lean muscle mass too, which makes the weight cut easier. So the 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 reason that is the muscle holds on to glycogen, which is basically you know uh, a polymer, let's call it, of glucose, which is from carbohydrates, and it's stored in your muscles to provide your muscles with energy. And for every gram of glycogen, your your body holds 3 grams of water. So you can imagine that when you're doing the week fight week and you're trying to lose water acutely, so in a really rapid amount of time, the more muscle you have, the more water you're able to lose. So I think that's a huge contributing factor. The two contributing factors was the metabolism was significantly increased, and we were giving you more food and even carbohydrates late in the game, and then two, the increased amount of muscle mass. So
Yeah, I noticed that I had a huge increase in muscle. So I mean, even like, because my coach always likes to film us coming out of the cage like after a win, and he was like, "I want you to look at this video," and it was like a video of like my back, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, I definitely like was like so much more lean this fight camp, and it's just insane, and it's such a relief too, knowing that you're gonna be okay, you're gonna make weight, and you're not gonna starve yourself, or you don't have to be uncomfortable to do it.
yeah, you don't want to be worried about that. Like you're about to get into
No.
a fist fight in a cage,
Literally.
like not like an open field, like when I used to fight in high school and I was a tool. Like it'd be an open field, and if you were getting beat up, you can start to run away a little bit, and then go fight someone else or come back. In a cage, there ain't no running away, and you're about to get in there with someone who is also highly trained. You don't want to be
Right.
worried about your weight cut right before,
Yeah.
and the factors, as you said, like this PTSD that you get from the weight cut of, just, any traumatic event, people can, experience PTSD the next time that they have to do that. And you don't want to have to go through that. So I'm glad that, I was able to come in and provide some insight and stuff. And I'm excited to continue to work with you on all your fights towards the strap. I think I'm really grateful that we connected. But I also want to talk about your journey into mixed martial arts. So like did it start off as like something you always wanted to do, or was it like, oh, you know what? Like I think actually I just like watching people do this and I want to do it, or were you like, no, like I want to go beat some people up because I'm just like this pissed off teenager? Like what
Yeah.
where was your head at when this started?
Well, I grew up in the streets and I was a Crip, so I ended up, wanted to jump into MMA.
Well then.
No,
Well then. All
no.
right.
No, it's actually really funny because I just picked up some like really big sponsors, like a huge endorsement with this awesome company called Dex Imaging, and they really just they want to help, um, children and underprivileged kids and stuff like that. So anyway, I won't sit here and talk too long about them. But anyway, when I met the CEO, whether or not they didn't know if they wanted to sponsor me or not, and this is a huge endorsement. I mean, this is like a multi-million-dollar company. And the first time he met me, he had a huge smile, and he was like, "This was right before my last fight. I was cutting weight, and he was like, 'You are not what I was expecting.'" And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, did you think I was gonna have like a teardrop like tattooed underneath my eye, like scars all over my face, like this real hood?" He's like, "No, you're just so well spoken and you're pretty and this and that." And I was like, "Well, thank you." I was like, "That means a lot. Thank you."
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I had an awesome childhood. My parents are amazing. I grew up in a great neighborhood. I grew up like kind of near Bell Chase, in a gated community, and I think I I kind of give credit to my brother because he like, he like picked on me so much growing up that I just wanted to rage when I got like close to 19. But no, I right out of high school, I went to the University of New Orleans, and I played sports my whole life. So I was kind of just one of like always been one of those like really competitive people, no matter what it was. But I never really like stuck to sports like I did when I like got introduced to martial arts, and it was just something about it. I mean, like it's so therapeutic. I don't know if you guys have ever like taken a class or like punched something, but it's like it's really therapeutic. And I kind of did this like self defense called Krav Maga for about a year, and I ended up becoming like a certified instructor. Did all this stuff and ended up teaching for like 7 years at this Krav Maga place. But about a year into that, I realized that you can't really like compete in self defense. Like you can't just like pick up a chair and like hit someone, or like you can't just like
Free
kick someone
country.
in the balls. You can't like just like poke someone's eyes out like competitively.
You
So
can't do that. This is America. Come on.
you can do whatever the hell you want, honestly, but
Living in the wrong place.
competitively like sanctioned, yeah, you can't be biting people and shit. I don't know. Mike Tyson did that though, right? Didn't he like bite someone's ear?
Evander Holyfield bit
Yeah.
a little chunk right off his ear.
But anyway, I mean, I ended up training at this small gym a year into kind of that self defense, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Honestly, I was like, I just want to try and compete. I had this urge. It's something that I just really like enjoyed doing, and my first amateur fight, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was in there. It was a 145 fight. Um, like the ref says go, and it was Rich Clemente. Rich Clemente was a former UFC fighter, and he was roughing our fight, and this girl just like runs at me, like, and I was just like, oh my god. So like I just started jabbing. Like all I threw was jabs. Like it was like I didn't know how like what else to do, and I honestly TKO'd this girl with just jabs. But I had no idea like what a TKO was. Like I was just hitting her, and like she fell, and Rich Clemente like did the little like hands out like okay, fight's over, and I just ran back to my corner like ready to go again. I was like, okay, we're gonna go again, right? And yeah, so like I think like it was kind of like that runner's high, like you do like a marathon, and like after you're like, oh my god, like that was insane, but like I want to do it again. It was kind of one of those things for me. And honestly, playing sports growing up, like this was by far the most complex, hardest, mentally and physically like sport I've ever done in my life. Just
Yeah.
obsessed with it.
Yeah,
pretty
it
wild.
has to be an obsession. I mean, to go in there. Yeah, this is hilarious. I feel like I see that in a lot of fights. What's that dude's name? Conor McGregor like jokingly called him out not too long ago.
Wasn't Khabib, it was the
No, it's some dude that Diego Sanchez. If you
Oh
go back
god.
and look at so Diego Sanchez is a fighter for the UFC, but Diego Sanchez, if you go
I'm
back
pretty
and look
sure
at his
we fought on the same card.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
you gotta go. Did you listen to that corner work?
which one? Which one?
His last fight. His last fight, we fought on the same card at
Yeah.
in New Mexico,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like this dude is like his coach is like a Sistema guy. Like this dude, like Sistema, like when people run into this person that does Sistema and they just like put their hand out like they're Jesus, and they
Yeah.
like fall. That's the kind of coaches like Diego Sanchez's coach is. And you should, if you haven't, go back and hear the corner work that his coach is giving him.
Yeah, I
It
haven't
is
heard it.
insane.
I looked up highlights with him though, and it legitimately is just like this hardcore music, and him and his opponent just like running on each other, just like 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. It's so funny. And then that's the reason I'm bringing this up, but it brings up something else funny. I seen Diego because he got kneed illegally
Yeah.
and in his last fight, and he
Yeah,
won
and he was
by
losing that fight too.
he was losing that fight, And
Yeah.
and he posts something like, because Conor McGregor said Conor McGregor versus Diego Sanchez, like obviously as a joke, like Conor McGregor's not
Yeah.
going to fight Diego Sanchez, and Diego Sanchez, took it as like a real thing and like made a post about it, and then Conor McGregor posted like, nice work, Diego Sanchez intelligently fought win. It's like, dude, you got to legally need, like, it's so funny. But
His
yeah, this reminds me of that, like amateur fighting and like these things, like when you don't really know what to do, but you actually stay composed and like actually
Yeah.
used your jab,
I think I just like blacked out a little bit, honestly. Like if you go back and look at like the pictures of them raising my hand, it looks like I'm looking like into the abyss. Like my eyes are huge. I'm like in shock. Like, oh my god, I did not realize like an MMA fight was gonna be like this crazy, like this violent. Like, what did you expect?
I mean, yeah, there's nothing, I think, unless you've been in a fight and then you take it to the exponential level of being in a fight in a cage. I mean, the only thing, I've never been in a fight. I remember one time in a rugby game, I called this guy out because he kept hitting some of my smaller players, and I said to him, if you do that again, I'm going to lay your ass out. And I blacked out, and then I just remember punching one of my teammates because they picked me up off the guy. And I was like, oh, okay.
Shit.
Yeah,
Punched the
and
wrong guy.
well, I just kind of I like I said, I just blacked out and went after the kid,
Yeah.
and that obviously that's not the way when you're going into a cage fight. Like you just don't do that. But that's the thing I've enjoyed about reading up and watching highlights is that the amount of skill and like surgical precision that you have of just seeing an opening and then having to like either rip somebody's leg off or hit them really hard to make them go back. It's incredible. So I can't imagine how like all the training that goes
Yeah.
into it.
It starts to become like masked a little bit because when you start fighting someone who's high level like you, it can really start to like some people will look at it and be like, wow, this is a boring fight. And it's like, well, actually, like both of these people are really highly skilled, and it's harder in that sense,
For sure. I think I like it almost to like a chess match. When you
Oh,
have
God,
people
yeah.
when you have people that understand something. It's like when, like if you grow up in the U.S., how everybody watches baseball or football, and you can kind of get the understanding of it. But when you show somebody that's never seen the sport before, they're like, why are they stopping every 10 seconds? Why is this taking
Right.
so long?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Unless you're a coach or a fighter, you really don't understand what the hell's going
Oh,
on. Like
God,
I'm
no.
with my buddies,
No.
and I'm like, oh yeah, like he's guard, he's got him in guard. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Like
Uppercut!
like, I'm like,
The dude's all the way across the cage. You're like, uppercut!
Yeah.
I love the guys. They're like, if I was in there, like, no, just shut up. No.
Yeah, but that's what because everybody thinks that they can relate to it more than they actually can. But the reality is
Yeah.
like they're looking, like one fighter's looking at the other fighter's movements. They're seeing how they're feinting. They're seeing like it's a lot more than just like take the person down and submit them, or oh, you missed that opportunity to hit them there, or whatever it might be. So it's just hilarious. But I think that it's very, very difficult, at least for me, to even imagine getting in a cage with someone that I'm not like angry at. Like
Right.
that's insane. I think like based on Macy, your mentality and stuff, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna get myself angry at this person by making, which a
Right.
lot of UFC fighters do. They're like, I
Right.
need to get angry because it's gonna help me prepare for this fight, and this is why they talk shit, and it helps with
Right.
promotion and everything else.
Well, for
but,
some
like,
people, it's like it might be personal for them,
Yeah,
especially
sure.
like the Khabib and McGregor type thing.
yeah,
But I always like I internally like want to hurt someone. Like I'm not like angry at them, but I'm like, well, we're both going in there and like we both have the same idea, right? And like you want to take away what's important to me. So like that's kind of the way like I hype it up in my head. Like
Yeah.
I've never ever been angry at like my opponent. Like I'm always like super respectful, like nice, you know. Unless they have a problem, but I try to stay composed, but I get hyped up because like it is the name of the game. Like I'm competitive as hell, and like when I go in there, I'm like, you want to take this away from me, like, so I'm not angry at them, but I definitely try to hype it up a little bit. That's just kind of the way I am.
yeah, that's a good way to do
Yeah.
it. That makes sense. And if you're, also like I think that as an individual athlete, there's a lot that goes behind like people depending on you. Like you
Right.
hired me as your coach, you have Eric as your
Right.
coach, you have your other coaches that you work with, all of your, your sparring, your wrestling, and all these other things. And
Right.
a lot of time and stuff is going into this, and you put a lot of time. You're the primary person putting in that time, and you want to go in there and showcase all the work that you put in. And I think that that's definitely has to be a part of it for individual athletes and why they're able to do this. But for someone that um, you know freaking yells when he's getting a tattoo, I can't even imagine going in there and like getting my nose broken and still being able to fight after. Like that's just, it's insane.
Yeah.
I guess hard times make hard men, but I don't have to be hard, so why the hell?
But you do have to train for those situations, because like ever since
Yeah,
I've moved to like Dallas and came to Fortis, like my coach Safe, I mean, he knows like it's war in there. He talks to us like every night, like before and after practice. He's like, it's war. Like no one gives a shit about you. Like you're going in there. He's like, you break your hand, you do this, you do that. He's like, you keep fighting, and it's kind of like he puts us through like the ringer. Like we go through really hard like sparring sessions, and he'll even stop like everyone else from sparring to watch you spar, to kind of like intensify like that moment, because that's what's gonna happen when you go in the cage. Like people are judging you, people are watching you, you know. Are you gonna be a little bitch about this or that, or are you gonna keep going? So I
yeah,
really like that he puts us through like that mental state all the time, because it's never going to be a perfect night. I mean, you're not going to have a perfect night. You train so hard 12 weeks every single day for this one night where you're going in the cage for 15 minutes. You know, it's
yeah,
never going to go your way.
yeah.
So you got to fight through adversity no matter what. And I mean, this last fight, I was in such good shape too. And I didn't realize like the elevation. Like it was like 6,500 elevation in New
Oh
Mexico.
wow, that's
I did
not nothing.
not, yeah, I did not realize like that was gonna like kind of like be a factor. But I was in such good shape that it really didn't. I mean, I could feel it for sure, but and like I said again, like it's one of those adversities you have to fight through. Like you've prepared, you come this far. Like no matter what, you can't let shit like that stop you. It's all in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that all of that I guess supersedes like you know not having confidence in the ring and stuff like that. I mean, you showcased this when you fought one of your good friends in a tough finale, right? I mean, this was
Yeah.
somebody that you knew, and
Right.
you had to go in there and win if you wanted to be the tough winner, and you did it. But um, that it's not that the friendship wasn't important to you. It's just that you've also been working really hard, on your career as a fighter, and this is the opportunity you've been waiting for. How can you not go in there and give it your all?
Yeah. And I think it just depends like who it is, because like Panny and I were really close on the show, and we were on the same team. And this was for the tough finale. I had to fight my friend Panny, and she like she's always been like a go getter, like she's always been down to fight. Like she's never been like that type of person that talks shit. She's just like, let's go in there and do the shit. Like let's go in there and like fuck each other up.
Yeah.
So she's always had that mentality, because it's like at the end of the day, it's a sport, it's a competition. You know, like when in the NFL, people are gonna play their friends all the time. They make a good
Right.
play, you help them up, you're like, all right, good job, bro. Like, so it was like when we got in the cage and we were looking across from each other, we just started nodding our heads like, let's fucking do this. Let's put on a good fight, And I
Yeah.
think it's like it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
So and
You're an entertainer too.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And after, and I knew like it's also weird in a sense that exactly like each other's style, because we trained together. And so we knew what to expect from each other in a sense, which is also kind of weird, because it's like, oh well, she knows I might be like kind of bad at this, like she knows my weaknesses. So second round, I got a second round submission on her, and right after I submitted her, I just hugged her. Because we both trained like our whole life to get to this point. Like this was our way into the UFC. It was a big moment for both of us, and I didn't want to like celebrate and take that moment away from her.
Yeah.
So respectful, but we were both down to fight. And I just know, like, if I would have lost that fight, she would have been the same way. Like, super respectful. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know in the midst of this COVID stuff, it's crazy. You're not sure, but when do you anticipating fighting again? Do you have anyone in mind that or someone you've talked about with your manager / coach that you're looking to fight?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't. We definitely we wanted to fight Nico again since Nico pulled out of the last fight and I got a last minute replacement. But I mean, at this point, we don't really know like her intentions. Like I don't want to have to try and like rematch up with someone who has no intention of fighting me anyway. It's a waste of my time, And I'm trying to work back down into the rankings. I'm 11 right now. Like I want to get down in like top 5, and it's just that's not going to help. So. I'd like to fight someone below 10, try to move up in the rankings. And, we really just don't know right now. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're still going on with UFC 249, April 18th. And we have, we have a few guys that are fighting on that card from our gym, like Uriah Hall
That's
and
awesome.
Ryan Spann.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the problem is that we can't really, unless you've like quarantined with your partner, like you can't really... Like, how are you supposed to train?
Right.
How are you supposed to fight? How are you supposed to grapple and all that stuff?
Yeah.
But I would imagine as soon as this is all over and they lift the stay at home, they're going to start cranking out fights left and right. So it's kind of one of those things where we need to just stay ready no matter what, do our best to train by ourselves and be on our nutrition and stuff like that, and just be ready to fight 3 or 4 times like in this year.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna try to make the best fights. So yeah, hopefully you can get a top 10 opponent next. I mean, you've won a number of fights now. I don't see why not. And there's a lot
I don't see why not either. So.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of good opponents for you in the top 10 that you're extremely competitive with, and you got to keep elevating. So that reminds me, I have to send you your new nutrition plan. So for the listeners, after a fighter's done with their fight camp, they typically in their fight week and their fight, we typically put them on a reverse dieting phase. So we don't want them gaining all the weight back that we just helped them lose immediately. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reasons for that, and I won't go into the science today, but we're slowly adding in more calories. It's typically called a reverse dieting phase. So I need to send that over to you, and keep making sure that you keep ready during this time, because when the light's green, you best believe they're going to be trying to book something for you. So
they're going to be cranking out a lot of fights.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah. All right, so that was awesome. I had a really great time talking to you about your experience as a fighter, some of the mentality that goes behind both getting in a cage with someone, and also your fight camp and your fight week nutrition. And I'm looking forward to continuing to help you. So thanks for coming on today, Macy. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day, even though I know you guys aren't really busy right now. So
Hey now.
No, it's all good. We had a great time. So, all right, if you would like to work with any of our sponsors, or to get discounts on any of those products that we mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, please check our show notes, and please subscribe with your preferred podcast app. This is the Starving Podcast, and we are out. Bye.
Peace.